Tony bought himself a push cart and he started out to sell. He was loaded down with peanuts, and here's what I heard him yell: I've got hot nuts, 10 cents a bag. I've got hot nuts, I don't like to brag. Now my nuts, they are sweet, all the little girls like to eat. I've got hot nuts, 10 cents a bag. Tony thought he'd make a fortune selling peanuts on the street. He would holler he had hot nuts to each one that he would meet. I've got hot nuts, 10 cents a bag. I've got hot nuts, I don't like to brag. Now my nuts I must rave, 'cause all the girls seem to crave. I've got hot nuts, 10 cents a bag, not 5 cents, 10 cents a bag.
Welcome to 44 Minutes. Hi, this is the show. This is the second one that we're doing.
Welcome to episode 2.
Episode 2. We have a lot of things to say about today's record, which is that's the most artificial start I could possibly think of. No, so we listened to a record that I have been a fan of since I sort of just discovered I had it, called Girlesque.
And I have to say, I did kind of gather an intrigue when I came across it looking through Dan's records.
It's got boobs on it.
Yeah. What's funny is this one doesn't technically have boobs on it as much as it does just a nice chunky ass.
Oh yeah, I know, but it's just
because okay, let's pull it out right now and take a look at it.
So we didn't do this as much as the last one because it's not as photogenic, but this is awesome. Hopefully you can see that.
I think we should probably put a still of it full screen
full screen. But yeah,
it's really, and bear in mind this album was released in 1957.
Yeah,
and it has got essentially a naked woman on it in a period of American history that's really not very comfortable with its sexuality yet.
I think maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but when I figured out that it was 57, that's sort of freaked me out because I thought, well, there was the 60s seems like more the era where people were getting away with like cheesecake records and stuff like that. Not that like smut didn't exist before, but it's the 50s. I don't know. Maybe there's just not enough in regards to that I know about, and I think this is a great introduction to the sort of like 50s smut, maybe. The
underground of what I guess consisted of pornography at the time. We use that word very shakily because it's.
This is all speculation. We should actually probably go into all the facts we dug up about this record.
Yes. This was very difficult to find information about.
Yeah, well, what it is there's no like Wikipedia entry for it or anything like that. And I know Wikipedia is not complete, and maybe someone should build a Wikipedia article about Faye Richmond. But so basically what these are is that they're sort of like, like dirty cheesecake songs. And the whole purpose is that it's the kind of thing like you would invite your friends over and be like, hey, you guys want to listen to a dirty record? Or you'd have like a cocktail party with all of your fancy friends and be like, oh, she said pussy.
It fits right in at, guys' poker night, some background music. The guys can chuckle while they're playing their cards and smoking their cigars. It just has that feel of a seedy underbelly, like People don't discuss this in public.
or like an Ivy League dorm room or something like that. I don't know. At least that was.
There are a lot of examples of places that you would hear this that you wouldn't necessarily find yourself unless you were intending to.
But we started looking it up, and we hadn't really found much. Basically, I kept running into sources that were saying the same problems that we were having.
A lot of opinions.
A lot of opinions, not a lot of like actual facts that anyone was able to gather. But we got a fair amount of it, at least starting by actually the backs of the prior two records that had been released before this, which is, I think, what was it?
A Little Spice.
A Little Spice, and then For Men Only.
Exactly.
Both of which actually have things about Faye Richmond written on the back.
Unlike this one that just goes straight into the...
Like it's just an advertisement for other Davis records. There's not even any accreditation or anything like that. No names on any of the songs.
And we'll get into those advertisements and show you those as well later, because it's a strange
collection of stuff that they've managed to put together. But yeah, what happened was we started reading about it. It said Faye Richmond, Philadelphia. Like, it said that she was a singer from Philadelphia, and that, Joe Davis is basically like, hey, here's this Faye Richmond. You're going to like her. She's going to sing special songs.
She essentially started as a local cabaret-style lounge singer.
Something like that. She won, like, a dance contest when she was a kid, and she got to be a dancer as part of some traveling jazz band show or something like that.
Something that probably did the East Coast circuit.
And then the singer got sick. She filled in. She became the singer. And eventually Joe Davis got her to record some dirty songs.
And this was kind of looking like it was going to be her sort of breakout albums. I know it's not
something like that.
It's not necessarily something you would want to or would see on the pop charts, but it's a pressing, it's a publication, it's got your name on it. Yeah. It's kind of important to the beginning of a career.
I mean, although I will admit, it does really look... I mean, no, it definitely looks like Joe Davis basically just, like, used her voice, because she only appears pictured on one of the albums. It's For Men Only on the back. There's a picture of Faye Richmond.
A very small print picture,
like monochrome, like in blue, and she was a black woman in Philadelphia in the 50s, and all of her records, and I guess the point of that was just like to sell the nudity. Faye Richmond herself probably didn't want to be photographed nude, but it's just like specifically that it's each of them, it's 3 white women who are all like in various states of undress, like sexily on the covers, and little to no recognition outside of like the praises he writes on the back, that Joe Davis wrote on the back about her. But it just sort of like, it weirdly erases her existence from it.
It's a prime example of racial tension in media, that they had to use white models for the covers, and the suggestion that this was not a black woman because it mattered that much to consumers.
But, well, at the same time, and this may speak to specifically some gendered issues going on there, because he produced plenty of black artists, plenty of black jazz artists.
Yes, Joe Davis was known as the Melody Man, and was a major producer, writer, composer of jazz and R&B and a variety of different styles of music. Yeah. Throughout the 40s and 50s, working with Fats Waller, Andy Razaf, amongst others. Those two in particular are famous for Ain't Misbehaving. I said that in a very, very Caucasian way.
This is all like... There's so much information that like I am afraid that it's coming off kind of constructed, but it's like we all learned all of this information in like the last hour.
We literally, it was almost like hitting a treasure trove. We couldn't find hardly anything, and then all of a sudden it just was, it lined up. We found pictures.
We found pictures. What it was is that someone had posted like at least a reasonably high-res picture of the backs of one of the other records, and the fact that it actually had stuff written on it, like, I would have skipped that over, like, and I think I did. I've probably seen the back of it a couple times, but it was the back of For Men Only, the one that actually has the picture of her on the back of it.
And then all of a sudden these pieces started falling into place for us being able to find the information.
And we immediately found the piece of information that we had actually needed, because up until that point it was all Joe Davis, where she was from Philadelphia, she was black, and she died in 1959.
Complications after having her third child.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where it was, and that was Jet magazine, right?
Yes, that was the publication, which is still
in publication,
still being published till today. And it was
well, I mean, no surprise to the readers of Jet, or maybe, but
I mean, look at the magazine industry right now. Like, there's not very much that's surviving, you know, this current color.
I wonder if it's still online. Maybe I think we should have done maybe a bit more research about current Jet. I just saw there were some recent covers with you know, people I've seen at least in the last few years.
Well, so it means the company's still around.
They're still around, and it doesn't say that they're defunct anywhere on the Wikipedia page. Wikipedia.
That almost seems...
That was terrible. What did we do?
We're setting a standard.
Oh God. Yeah, no, but this was like really dense. This was actually like, I think compared to last time where it was just like we learned about Gertrude Berg and we learned this sort of like weird like sad sordid thing about like just how much of a weird jerk the original writer, or I'm saying weird jerk, but
just this very interesting confluence of choices
where that was all readily present. It was basically like, oh, this is a famous record that came out. This is like a cheesecake record that I knew nothing about. It says, like, if you look at the track listing, the track listing's only on the front of Girlesque. Girlesque is the third release out of them. They're all released in 1957. No, just nothing. It gives you nothing. It just says Girlesque. I think it even says like featuring Faye Richmond, and it's just like she sings on every track. I think it's a little bit more than featuring, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just mincing words there.
Well, and something they don't include on this one is the actual writers and producers of the music.
Nothing. Which they did on the first one. I don't know if they did it on For Men Only.
Yes, on the first album, A Little Spice, it actually talks about Joe Davis being one of the writers, Andy Razov. I think Fats Waller
wrote like one song. Yeah, but no, this was really fascinating, and there's definitely a lot more to be learned about here, but it's just like,
we're inspiring you to get out there.
We're inspiring you too. But I'm kind of wondering, it's like, are these the only things that Faye Richmond recorded? And like, did she have like a much more varied career as a singer that we just don't know about? Because it's reduced to these like cheesecake records that people were probably embarrassed about like 20 years after they bought them.
I'm going to go on a slight aside right now.
Yeah.
He did not use the word cheesecake to describe this album until we started recording.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
No, hey, look, it's what it was is that I've been reading stuff and they described it as cheesecake, and I'm just like, I guess
you've appropriated that adjective.
I've appropriated that adjective, but it fits because it's just like saying dirty record, which is what it is, but like it doesn't really get that whole weird relationship it has with its own content, where it's just like, oh, it's dirty.
Well, I referred to it early on as cheesy. Pornographic.
It's pornographic.
Because there is actually a point in 1957, 1958 where Joe Davis was arrested for the distribution of pornographic materials.
And this is the only material we had in the record for a while, was that Joe Davis was arrested for this.
Exactly. So this material was in the late 50s considered pornographic material.
Well, it had nipples on the front of a couple of the covers, and that's some bare ass. And I mean, it was probably for the content too.
It was multi-tiered as how pornographic it was.
Right. I don't know.
I think this might be a good opportunity to show the back cover, because that does you can't really tell on this, but it has those other two albums included on here, but then also shows the variety of other work that the Joe Davis labels worked on.
Well, okay, there's a few things going on here. There's A Little Spice, and I think it's like the second cover of it, because there's an alternate one that I've seen where it's like a keyhole and there's another naked woman in it. But
to explain why that there are multiple different covers, Joe Davis seemingly took albums that he made and repurposed them across his multiple labels.
Yeah,
he actually
had 3 different labels. He pressed them himself. Davis Records seems to have been mostly the casualty of that. But
he also had one called Beacon Records that was started in 1942.
Beacon and Celebrity.
Yes.
It was Beacon, Celebrity, and Davis. I think Davis Records, it just... There's nothing really much about it after a certain point.
You can tell from the albums on the back here that represent the Davis Records label.
Like, I think these are just his, like, cheesy ones. Like, it's A Little Spice, Piano Moods, Piano Cocktail,
Dixieland Heaven.
Mr. Honky Tonk.
The most disconcerting to me is the bottom left corner where it has Toyland Parade right next to Confidential.
Which I'm assuming is another dirty record.
It just does not... It's very unsettling.
And Hymns of Faith.
Oh, yes, and that's right in the middle between those two, or next to those two. It's just... It's very strange to see what an amalgamation of music this label produced. And I think that's right. A lot of it is the result of him repurposing music from one album onto others, rearranging the songs, using different covers just to help continue the sales.
Yeah. No, it's... I think there's something to be said about the fact that he wasn't part of, like, any major thing. It was all just him and his corporation, him holding onto the copyrights for all the music and everything like that. That he was able to get away with something like not crediting anybody on this record. It's his. He pressed it. You know, a lot of his artists probably didn't have the money to sue him for anything. You know,
it was on the first print of the For Men Only that actually says it had the writer's tags to the songs. I wish I could remember the
No, but it wasn't For Men Only. It was it might have been For Men Only, but that was A Little Spice.
Okay,
sorry, correction.
That's perfect.
Niggling details. Sorry.
And at the very bottom of that, it actually said all songs copyright Joe Davis, which then means that as he repurposes and re-releases these albums, he holds full rights, and he can release it with this little information about the original producing team, the writing staff, everything. One of the things that I was really impressed with on this album was the actual piano work, who wrote the piano parts and who played them. And there was pretty much no mention of that whatsoever. We don't know if it was actually Joe Davis himself or somebody that Faye Richmond brought in, or, you know, Fats Waller playing that music.
I don't think Fats Waller was playing.
Hey, you never know.
It's plausible enough.
This is a very tight-knit group of people, as you can see in not just their Wikipedia articles, but just you look up their records and they are constantly referring to each other as part of the team that wrote and produced this music. So it's not implausible that they could have been involved in the making of this album in a very, very direct way that he just turned around and threw to the wind.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if... I just think that is really sad that she passed in 59, and this is it. This is as much as we've been able to find out about her. And I mean, I guess, I don't know, I guess Joe Davis is influential. Maybe there's not enough that really we dug into that. Just after we actually finally found out details about her, we just sort of said, fuck it, we have as much as we need to really talk about it.
Well, I mean, it's more of a music history buff's subject. He's a producer and a writer. He's not really part of the, you know, the mainstream music scene. That's more, you know, Fats Waller, that side. And
right.
It's like people who know a lot about the Gershwins. Like, it's not something that's common knowledge, but those who understand it and study the subject know that there's a rich depth of history there.
But like, she's just so
I really think
all of it.
I really think that she probably died right before her career took off. This was obviously this wasn't her way of making it to the limelight, but it was that start down the road of this is what it's like to produce music.
I'm kind of wondering if her family was actually able to keep any of that money, making probably No.
That era, she was probably paid
She was probably paid
$50,
$4 per
$100,
sessions, and that's about it.
And that was it. No recognition beyond that. No royalties or anything like along those lines. So, I mean, this was probably the end of her line in music, and just no chance to build any kind of, I can't think of the term, just there's no recognition in her in music history because she died before she was able to leave her mark. And based on this album, I would say there would have been potential if she had survived for her to actually have
a really cool voice.
Like the sound of it is very, we're kind of going into the opinion section of the second half, but
that's true.
Her voice is very lounge, very cabaret, fitting burlesque music. That's another thing about this album, is it's kind of trying to take that burlesque cabaret style and put it into the home. And she had the right voice for it. She really hits her notes well. She has a very nice quavering vibrato that accentuates the innuendo of certain songs, which we'll go more into on the B-side. It's just, it really is a bad representation for her to end on, because, you know, this is the kind of stuff people wouldn't acknowledge in public actually owning. I think that was the other thing we wanted to say about the album, is that it's hard to find somebody who would actually admit to ownership of any of these.
I mean, or whether or not they even remember it is one of those things. I don't know. I mean, unless you have a special memory attached to a Playboy, like after a certain point, you just forget stuff like that. Like they probably bought this for a gag. Whoever I got it from bought this for a gag, listened to it a couple times, was like, oh, and then it just sort of languished in their record collection.
Behind the record collection.
Behind the record collection, just really untouched. Tucked in between all the Alan Sherman records that I have. It's definitely the same group of people. We're done.
Hey, that's the sound. Time to flip it over.
Yes. I love you.
A little girl was petting her kitten on the head. A lady stopped to watch her, and this is what she said. What long hair on your pussy. Gee, that's the longest that I've ever seen. What long hair on your pussy. How do you manage to keep it so clean? It looks so nice, I'd love to take a feel. It's just as slick as the back of an eel. What long hair on your pussy. Gee, that must be a real Angora cat. No, this ain't what you're thinking, for this is a real cat. And he is mighty lazy, for he won't chase a rat. What a long hair on your pussy. Gee, that's the longest I've ever seen. What long hair on your pussy. How do you manage to keep it so clean? It looks so nice, I'd love to take a feel. It's just as slick as the back of an eel. What a long hair on your pussy. Gee, that must be a real Angora cat.
And second half.
Welcome back.
It's midnight. It's officially midnight. We're recording this at midnight. It's very late.
For us.
I mean, yeah.
It fits the tone of the album that this is something that should be done away from the general public.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the first time I even listened to this, it was because I had some friends visiting, and it was one of those records that had just been sitting there. And I guess I didn't really care. I'm just like, oh, there's a naked woman on it. This is probably terrible. It's not the Beatles record.
Let's find out what'll happen.
But I had some radio friends visit, and they saw it and were just utterly fucking fascinated. And I had to throw it on. And just Tony's Got Hot Nuts being the starting track on it is pretty perfect.
It's really about the best way to start this album because the album is basically built on the concept of sexual innuendos.
Yeah, well, that's the entire thing. Is that I guess there's a couple times they get close to being explicit about it.
Which does lead to a point we'll probably come back to with the last
track on the album. But no, it's that whole thing of just like, I've got hot nuts, 10 cents a bag. And we've memorized like enough lyrics from these things despite only having, I mean, I've listened to it a lot.
I've heard it twice, and it's enough to the beats, the tone of it. It's all stuck with me. It's written to be very catchy.
And it's all very samey, but I don't mind that. I don't mind that it's like it's the same basic kind of, you know, melody structure that's going on with a lot of these. They all start with lead-ins, like, or not all of them, but a fair amount of them start with lead-ins,
pretty
sort
much.
of being like, and this is what he said, kind of stuff.
They're pretty much all written in a tone of story that a person is doing something or something is being prepared for, and then that goes into the line that becomes the innuendo.
Right. Well, I think it's the fact that there's just that line, like, all the little girls love to eat my hot nuts off of the first song, which that fucking sold me.
That's like, can't beat that for the first 30 seconds.
But they're just like little kind of...
They're like ditties,
I guess
little
like
ditties.
Ragtime piano numbers,
yes.
Sort of. Like, I don't know if ragtime is maybe there's some music knowledge I'm probably missing there.
Well, that's another thing, too, that we didn't mention in the first half. The whole album is done with Faye Richman's voice and an upright piano. That's it. There's no other parts. There's nobody else singing. It's as simple as that.
And it's all really well done.
For being two parts, it's really, it's not hard to get through the whole album.
What was your actual like first reaction when I started playing this for you?
I wasn't sure what to expect, if it was just going to be something that was just extraordinarily explicit, or if it was going to be very dainty about it, like, oh, he mentioned, you know, something about his member.
Yeah.
And the fact that it just went right into this hilarious innuendo, I couldn't help but enjoy going.
I guess that's what it is. It's that the innuendo isn't really subtle. It's not like hint, nudge. Like it's literally doing everything short of like screaming, "This is about sex."
Which, as you get further into the album, those innuendos not only become even more thinly veiled than the woman on the cover, but start getting very rambunctiously sexual. Like there was one section, of the cooking lesson where it was talking about ramming something in really hard and fast.
Yeah, I remember that where it was like distinctly just like, oh.
It all of a sudden got
just a really fucking visceral reaction off
it. Went from just being not just being about sex, but about vigorously, you know, forceful
fucking
sex.
Someone.
Yes.
It was, I still get a kick out of playing this one. I mean,
what would you say? This has come up a little bit. What would you say your favorite song on the album?
My favorite song on the album. Well, I like the swelling of the organ and the coming of the bride because one, that's a good title. But the other part is the fact that like that's the one where you know it's going to be a dirty song because it's on an album of dirty songs. And they spend the whole time saying nothing dirty, thinking like it's not like the other ones where they sort of like there's a little lead in, they sort of playfully dance around it until they get to the hotter lines of the song. It's all build up until those last two lines, you know, in the best part of every wedding, something that is a swelling of the organ and the coming of the bride is just, and the fact that it just ends on that is really good. And my other favorite,
My Sweet Harmony Man?
My Sweet Harmony Man, which I like because it's one of the few functional songs on the album.
It's actually really, of all of them, it's the most well produced.
Not to down on it, but it's just like they're corny little songs, simple little things. It's all basic, like samey structure. That was actually like a reasonably kind of fun jazz song that's like got a lot of really good innuendo about like musical instruments.
Diddling his fiddle and cleaning out the trombone bell,
something like that, and then playing with his piccolo. Like it's all really good stuff. Like,
but really well sung as well.
Like I for like if I ever do radio again, like if I had my show, and I said this before. Part of what I like about it is that you could actually fit that into a set of like, like in between some like, Dixieland jazz and stuff like that. You could just put that one in there and it'd just be like, oh, that was a funny, dirty little jazz song. And then move on with it. Like it doesn't have that like it's sort of,
it doesn't need an explanation.
It doesn't need an explanation. It doesn't need prompting. It just becomes a much more straightforward song immediately, which is good, which is what I like about it. What was your favorite?
My favorite is actually one of the songs that we were going to mention that doesn't actually have innuendo to it.
Right.
It's more about...
It's the one track on the B-side.
It's on the B-side, which, funny enough, that's on the B-side of the album. But later. Yeah, well, that's where all the weakest parts are. But it's actually a song that's not an innuendo. It's more speaking about the album itself. It's called It's Smart to Be Smutty. And the whole point is that, you can go through life, you can be at a social gathering and just talk the talk, walk the walk, do like everybody else. But you're really going to get people's attention, you're going to be remembered, and people always enjoy a story that has a risque tone to it. Like, go ahead.
Well, I mean, totally jumping in, but I'm trying to think of a good concise way to say it.
It's a good way to interrupt somebody and not know what you're going to say. Yeah,
it's a great. I should do it all the time, regularly. Just completely fucking derailed that. No, but it's trying to discuss like some sort of power you actually gain from it, and I think that's what I was trying to say.
Okay,
is that there's something about what she's trying to argue, or whatever the songwriter's trying to argue, is being that it's smart to be smutty because it's just like everyone pays attention to you when you've got a dirty joke, and it can like break down barriers of communication. At least that's what I picked up from it.
If you have the story that gets people's attention, they're going to remember you. You're going to be known as the life of the party. It comes with a social, not obligation, but it gives you a weight in social gatherings that people want, especially in that time when you had to keep up with the Joneses. Like something that sets you apart and gets everybody talking about you. There's the person that really knows how to get the attention of the group. I'm sure there's probably some back end negative side to all of that, but go ahead.
It feels like it could be like validation for like having bought this record.
Pretty much.
Or it's just like, yeah, you did the right thing. I mean, you should show this to all of your friends. All of your friends need to listen to this dirty record you bought. Yeah, they're gonna love it. Just bring it to all the parties.
Nobody will mind.
Nobody will mind. It's fine. That's what's going on.
Once the kids are asleep, everybody's okay with it.
Oh fuck. We should definitely talk about just about the weight of the album in terms of like A side to B side.
Yeah, it's pretty well stacked towards the A side. I know we've been talking about It's Smart to Be Smutty, but that's about the only decent track. It's got...
I mean, I still like What Long Hair on Your Pussy because they managed to make a song essentially about having a very, very wet pussy. But
the weird thing is that they had this major disclaimer halfway through the song about, we are not talking about a vagina. It is a cat.
Like yeah, she sings. Oh, I wish I could remember the exact lyrics because it's really like hilariously.
We'll just put it in at some point.
We'll just put it in at some point. Like how I interrupted you earlier. It just interrupts the song, completely fucking disrupts the flow of it.
Hit the brakes.
It's like, and I know what you're thinking. This is just an ordinary cat, and it's just
don't be so dirty.
It's like,
and yet
she kept saying, what long hair on your pussy. Just as if they needed to make themselves feel comfortable with saying pussy over and over and over again.
Or basically for the whole album, that they just felt like we said, there are some early sections in there that get really intense. And it's almost like an afterthought of, crap, maybe we should say something to address the fact that maybe not everybody's going to be okay with this. So just in case you're thinking this, all these innuendos aren't really innuendos.
Yeah. But other than that, the B-side just isn't fun. Like, I think that's probably the most on-point criticism of it, is just the first half of that album is just like good, dirty, cheeky, kind of dumb fun. Like, I enjoy putting that on for people. It still serves its purpose.
And I could actually see somebody owning this album and only listening to the B-side once and never flipping it over again. Because the songs like My Man is a Movie Operator and I'll Keep It Turned Towards the Wall, the way she even sings it sounds like they just handed her a copy of the lyrics and she was really confused as to what the innuendo was. So there's that lack of tone that comes out in the A side, where that you can hear that she's really digging the material and she's getting sultry because she can agree with what she's singing about. It just more sounds like, well, I have to finish the album somehow.
Yeah, like it all lacks punch. That's what makes the other songs so funny, is the fact that like there's a dirty thing we're getting to. It's dancing around it, hitting the punchline, dancing around it, hitting the punchline. Like it builds these good, like, funny song structures. And again, these aren't like great works of like of jazz of the area. It's pretty standard, like lowbrow vaudeville kind of stuff. But the second half of the album just doesn't succeed at being lowbrow. It's not funny, it's not dirty enough. There's nothing much to be said about it.
It almost would have benefited from just taking songs from the previous albums and just repurposing them and throwing them onto the B side of it. It really...
And that's what he did later with like Beacon Records and everything.
Yeah, it was a process he was already familiar with doing. I mean, there was no reason for him not to just go ahead and do that with this one. It's the songs are so weak, and being the third album, I mean, you've exhausted a lot of writing potential already.
Yeah.
So if he had not even bothered with him, it may have actually benefited the album a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of wondering if he's still... I think he basically just recorded these kinds of like dirty, these dirty, I'm going to say it again, cheesecake records. But essentially, I think he basically, at least looking at his catalog, it seems like he just recorded these and then just kept like recombining them over and over again. Like, I think that this was such a small part of his business, and I think that the Davis Records thing was 100% the Kitsch thing. Like, I don't know, like, he probably couldn't find any traction in it for himself. Then again, he was probably making so much fucking money off of just holding onto his copyright. So there's a book, Kevin, you found the title of it. What was it? It was something...
something about music broadcasting, I believe.
No, the one that was about him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was, and you said you couldn't find a copy of it or something like that, but specifically, like, the title was, like, Never Sell Your Copyrights or something like that.
Yeah, okay, I remember what you're talking about.
Which is a good indication that it was just, like...
Never sell a copyright.
Never sell a copyright. That's what it's called. Joe Davis.
The Joe Davis story. I really don't know. But the important lesson of this was that you could only buy it online, and each copy was pretty much about $250. So, I mean, this material just kind of begs that same point, that it's just like, if you're going to write music and repurpose it and do all this, you're going to do it at top dollar.
Yeah.
His story is pretty valuable.
Well, that's why I think one of the first results that came up when we were looking is just like worst records ever, and it was one that was called "What Long Hair on Your Pussy,"
One of those repurposed
Or was it
ones.
was it My Pussy Belongs to Daddy? Actually, that's one of my favorite ones on there too.
That one actually had a really soulful sound to it because it was very slow compared to the more upbeat piano background.
And it's definitely, you can tell that they're like actually talking about a cat. It's the fact that, here's the thing, they didn't need to give that disclaimer for what long hair on your pussy, because it's like, no, we understand.
You've already that was the whole purpose of the story part of the song.
They establish it's a cat at the beginning. When you already establish that at the beginning, you don't need to go on with it. That's why I think My Pussy Belongs to Daddy works so much better. Also, I don't know how many times I can say the sentence, My Pussy Belongs to Daddy.
I'm pretty sure some group will come after us after a certain time.
No, they won't. I still think they're going to get mad about the Israel stuff I said last time. but
that's going to be the article about, when we're assaulted, it'll be our picture of us doing thumbs up together.
Doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of wish I had more dirty records. I guess I have like another thing that's like this, that's similar, but I don't know. I appreciate,
if you like this, once you've heard the samples that we're going to use, and if you seek it out yourself, if you would like more like this, let us know. If you'd like more spoken word, like in the first video, let us know. If you have your own personal suggestions, just like, subscribe, comment, whatever people say on the interweb.
If you'd like to buy us records, if you'd like to buy records and send them to me, or if you have just any weird, awful, shitty records, I will not give you my mailing address because I don't want you to know where I live.
That's usually the point where we make get a PO box.
We have to get a PO box and then just like flash it right here. Just
at the bottom.
I'm not gonna add any fucking graphics. We're just gonna keep doing this. What's this?
I mean, you did that. I went like this, so I mean, this kind of follows the album really well.
That was you jerking someone off, Kevin. Swelling of the organ, coming of the bride.
Maybe that was my trombone. Okay.
It's lame, but it's so fun lame. Like, it's so gleefully, childishly dirty in a way that's awesome.
It's exactly what you expect. That's that's the charm of it, is it's exactly what you expect. And so as long as you go in with that mindset of, this is going to be entertaining because they use bad words and put a nice piano rhythm to it.
It's trashy and in love with the fact that it is trashy.
It's accepted it.
It's like, I wonder it seems like the kind of record that like John Waters has like a couple copies of and is
just because.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to summarize it, it's.
I wish the second half didn't suck, but
it's almost unfortunate. It's almost worth searching out the other albums in order to know if they were well written in comparison. I think there are digital copies available. We're sticking to analog currently because that's the focus of the show, but there are, was it Google Play that had...
Google Play has some, there's like little tidbits here and there on iTunes. Someone re-released For Men Only on CD or something like that. One of the blogs we were on mentioned that.
I think his name is Mike Cobb or something. I can't remember the name of it.
We'll put a link to his blog in the description, just so.
See, we reference our sources.
we both went to we know how to do the papers and the research and the citing sources.
You can see it on his shirt.
Plagiarize. Look at that. This means I went to Japan and lost a lot of weight because I couldn't afford food. And that's probably the best note to end the show off on.
Yay. Lose weight, everybody, and listen to the album.
Don't lose weight if you don't have to.
Accept yourself.
Well, it's
We have thrown that out way too many times.
just keep holding it. Just keep holding it.
Can we fade out now?
We should do the Nardwar thing and just like stay like this. My eyes hurt. It's like the light's awful bright. That's why I haven't been looking at the camera as much as you have. Ow. How's it going, Kevin? I think that's the end of this one. Sorry we derailed a bit there. Have a wonderful time. I don't know, make sure to
do things.
Do good things.
Be yourself.
Be yourself. Just so little energy left. It is almost 1 a.m.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
See you next time.
Bye.
We need to sign off.
We need to sign off.
We need a sign off.
We need a sign off. Fart.
That's too close to enjoying your burrito. Ah.